to be a hard part to it. Like, there's always something hard. It's about something that drives success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sales is the life flow, is the lifeblood of any business is sales. So if the lifeblood of any business is sales, that is always going to be hard. It's always going to be challenging. It's never just going to be easy. But what you can make it is enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it enjoyable is when you have a compelling reason and a compelling vision of who you're going to become by doing this, you enjoy it.
It's all in your mind.
It's all in your mind.
Attitude there.
Right?
And I would say whatever you're feeling is probably telling you what part you're honoring. If you're feeling bad or depressed about it, you're honoring your past self.
That's
if
right.
you're feeling like excited about it and you want to learn from each one, then you're honoring your future self.
100%. So lastly, I want to leave you with this thought. Think of something, what is it that people have told you that you're good at? People say, you're really good at this. I want you to think of what do people normally tell you that you're good at? I want you to say it. What is it? What do people normally say? Yeah, you're really good at that.
Phone calls and setting appointments.
It's phone calls and setting appointments.
Um,
What are you good at?
I'm good with people. I'm not necessarily on the phone, but in person.
But you're good with what?
With,
Connecting with people.
yeah.
So
I
let's
can-
be
I
more
can-
specific.
I
what
can
it is.
adapt to any personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Making them feel comfortable, I would
That's
say.
right. You're good at making them feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Probably analyzing situations as if I was like outside of them and just like
Mm-hmm.
looking at all the different factors that go into like what's making this situation what it currently is and what I have to do to make it what I want it to be.
Okay. Would you consider yourself good at making people feel comfortable?
Yeah. He's good with
Getting better.
emotions when they're super
Okay,
dramatic.
getting better. But do people ever say to you, man, you're just really good at making people feel comfortable?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, sometimes. So what I'm trying to get at
Oh.
is this. When we go back, what are you good at? What do people normally say you're good at?
I don't know, I'm saying more like artistic things.
Artistic things. Perfect.
Creativity.
Creativity, like drawing?
I like drawing and like sports.
Okay.
Stuff.
Listening.
Okay.
Just like listening and understanding people.
So when you're drawing or when you're listening, does it feel hard, or when you're analyzing or when you're making people feel comfortable, does it feel hard to do?
No, if you're good at it.
No, I can't say. Does it feel hard to do for you?
Sometimes. I mean, but I've done it enough where it's not hard anymore.
Right. So what I'm getting at is this: what you naturally like to do, artistic. If I were to say, Jen, I want you to be able to draw as good as you can draw, that would feel like work for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, shoot. But for him, it feels like, remind me of your name again. Ted, that's right. But to Ted, it's enjoyable to do. So now watch. Why is it enjoyable for you to do? What do you think about when you're doing it?
I don't know, I feel like when I'm doing something like that, I'm really focused on what I'm doing and just really not.
Do you think about, oh my gosh, I gotta get all the pens out or all the pencils out, I gotta find it, oh, I gotta get this, I gotta get his space. Do you think about any of that as like hard work?
No.
Right, you enjoy the process. You enjoy the iteration. When you drew something and it wasn't as good as what you thought it to be, did you beat yourself up? Did you hate it?
No, I mean sometimes.
Sometimes, but in most cases when you did it, you're like, I did a little better on this, but I wanna try it again. I wanna try it again, right? That's the thought. My point is, what we are naturally good at is very hard to do for other people. The only reason why we don't recognize it in ourselves is because in our mind we have decided how to make that enjoyable, and so we enjoyed it. It didn't feel like hard work. And so when someone says to me, you are naturally good at just speaking in front of people, I'm like, I am? No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. No, I'm not. I don't even try. But if you asked me what I would do, I would say I spend a lot of time doing it, but I don't find it as work. I find it as like play. I find it like, it would almost be like saying, yeah, I eat a lot of ice cream, but I didn't realize that was hard work. Yeah, makes sense? So because I've found out how to make the iteration enjoyable, it doesn't seem like I should qualify as a person who's really good at that because I enjoyed it so much. Does that make sense? And so the point of all of this is to find what a compelling reason does. It helps to make the iteration of something that we don't enjoy, but we know will drive an ultimate outcome of who we want to become. It makes that now enjoyable. And then we find ways to do it better. Does that make sense? I hated this job at first. Literally, I tried to I was applying with the FBI. They turned me down. I applied with the DEA, and then finally the DEA came back and they said, we want you. All you gotta do is pass the PT test and you're good to go. And I remember thinking, asking them, did I tell you that? Anyway, I remember thinking like, how much money, they were telling me how much money they make and all that. And I'm like, shoot, I'm making double that right now. Why would I take a pay cut? And then I realized, dude, I like this job actually. It may not be as like prestigious or as admirable as, you know, a title officer, an escrow officer isn't like a DEA officer, right?
Yeah.
Right, you know, but like, dude, I'm making 2 or 3 times more than what they're making. Why would I ever do that? And I don't get to choose where I live. They move me around the country. And I gotta go bust into, I'd rather bust in to do a closing than bust in to do a drug bust.
One safer for sure.
Yeah, instead of walking in with a gun. So what I found was I started making the iteration of becoming that person enjoyable. I started having a clear mental image of who I wanted to become. And I remember when it came to the most enjoyable is when I wrote down and said, who do I want to become, or who would I need to become so that business would just come to me? Who would I need to become so that people would just want to come work with me? What would I have to be able to do for people for people who would just knock on my door and say, I want to be an escrow officer with you? Who would I have to become to do that? And I started creating a clear mental image of who I would have to become so that people would say, I love working with you. There's no way I'd work with anybody else, whether it was an agent or a loan officer or an escrow officer or a receptionist, but every person that I would need to be involved in my day-to-day business in order to make it successful, what kind of person would I have to be able to become so that people would want to do that or want to work with me? I had this clear mental image of people lining up at a door wanting to interview with me, and then me saying to them, thank you for wanting to be an escrow officer here. Like, we want you to be one here, but we just don't have space for you right now. I'll keep your name and number and call you back in 6 months. Like, that's what I wanted to be able to say. That's, to me, that's the mental image that I have in my mind of who I want Vanguard to become. And I can tell you, like, it's becoming that. Brooke wasn't a person that we called and recruited. Brooke, her friend came over, and her friend's like, this place is great. And Brooke called, wanted to come over. You know what I mean? Like, it started to become a place where the people wanted to come work as opposed to me having to recruit people to work. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So, who would you have to become? What does it look like? So that when you make a call, that you're excited to make the call because you're like, you don't even know who's on the other end of this phone. Wait till you find out that it's me. Wait till you find out that it's this person. Then you're gonna want to work with them. I can't wait till you get to know me. Right? So I just want to take a minute, write down, what does that person look like for you? If someone called you and you were a buyer or a seller, and the agent called you, who would that agent have to be in order for you to say, yeah, I want to work with you?
On this or just
No,
separate?
we'll do it separate. You can write on the back of that or in your journal or whatever, but I just want you to write down, who is it that you would have to become in order for that to happen?
funny, cause I always wanna meet the person in person, cause I know I'll do better with them than on the phone.
So who would you have to become so that they didn't have to meet you in person, they would make the decision, that's what
On
you
the phone.
want? But I get it, I'm the same way. What would you have to believe about the person on the phone? What would you have to believe about them to decide? How would that person have to convey that so you could create that belief? What would that person have to say so that you could believe that? Here's another way to say that. What question would that person be answering? What would you have asked the agent? What question would you have asked them so they would be answering the question that would convey to you that they're the person that you want to work with? What question did you ask them? Agent calls, hello, you're talking to them, and you think, yeah, I want to use them, but do I know, you're like, I would use them, yeah, their fees are okay, this is okay, like everything's average, but this is what I would need to know. I would ask them this question. What question are you asking them that would make it compelling for you that you would work with them? What's the question you'd ask them? Just give it 20 more seconds.
Question you'd ask them if you wanted them to work with you?
If you're the buyer or you're the seller and you're about to make the decision to work with them, what question would you ask the agent? Say, okay, here's my final question. What I really want to know is, what would you ask them?
As the client?
Yep, what would you ask them? What question would you ask them?
For the agent, so if you were the client and asking the agent.
Yeah, I'm the buyer, I'm the seller,
I would ask them what makes you different than all the other agents that I'm talking to.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, what makes you stand out?
that's right. So then how would you answer that question?
I would ask them a question, well, what is it that you're looking for in an agent?
Mm-hmm.
What would make me be the best
What made you
agent?
ask the question? What,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, what makes you ask the question? Well, because you all are the same, and then they're gonna tell you something. Because I just wanna know,
You're all just thinking
are
about
you
your
gonna
commission.
give me the best, the absolute best deal that's possible? Are you going to they're gonna wanna know, am I gonna get the biggest bang for it? They're gonna ask you this. My
Mhm.
point is, so they're gonna tell you why, right? But when you come up with your reason as to why you're in the business, like why you're here, like right now it's hard, but if you weren't in the Salt Lake real estate business here in Salt Lake County, what would this industry miss if you don't show up? What did they miss? Right? Kobe Bryant dies, everybody's crying because what do they miss? Right? Why, if Kobe Bryant never existed in the NBA, what would we miss out on? How would it have been less? If when Michael Jackson died, what is it that we missed about him? Right? His compelling, his dynamic, his untouchable performance, his dance routine, untouchable, right? That's what we miss.
So,
So we have to ask ourselves, like, what is it you're gonna master that people are going to miss when you're not in the industry? So if I were you, when you answer that question, whatever you think that answer is, I would say, let me tell you why you should use me, because there's not gonna be one stone unturned. There's not gonna be one option I did not give you. There's not gonna be anything I'm not gonna be willing to do to make sure that you get the best deal and get exactly what you're looking for when I'm your agent. There's no question in your mind that you're gonna think that, could we have gotten that a little cheaper? I'm gonna tell you why or why we couldn't have. I'm gonna tell you why we could have or why we couldn't have. I'm gonna tell you everything about this deal. I'm gonna be so transparent with you. You will have no question in your mind that we didn't get the best deal. And if we didn't get the best deal, you're gonna at least understand what that was. That, yeah, we might have been able to get it $1,000 cheaper or have not offered to pay for this, repair, but we did it and that just solidified the deal. So yeah, we overpaid $1,000, but we made sure we got the deal. Does that make sense? Like,
mhm.
I know for me, what I would want to know is, did we really maximize my money and our ability to get what I really wanted? Did we look at everything? Does that make sense? So when you can say that, when you can say that in my mind, in that moment for that person, when you can just say, this is why you're gonna choose me because of this, you've answered the question before they even asked it. And they're gonna go, I know you're exactly the person I wanna deal with. Why? Because you answered the very question that nobody could ever answer. And I didn't even ask the question. So when you can answer the question, the compelling reason of because they have a compelling reason of who they're gonna choose. They have a reason of why they're gonna say, absolutely Ted, absolutely not you, absolutely this person, and absolutely not this person. They already know that, right? So when you can answer that before they ask it, it's done. It's over. But if you don't take the time to become that person or to go through a process like, what are they finally asking? It will always be hard. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, I know we're right at 10, but what I wanted to do was just take 5 minutes and go through these questions again. So, we've done this once before, so I'm gonna play music. I want to give you 5 minutes. I want you to recognize how you feel now about your day, like what you're doing today. And I want you to imagine that you're doing this first thing in the morning. I want you to notice how you feel after you answer all these questions, right? Just take a notice of how you feel now about the rest of your day. You got 5 minutes to answer those questions, and then we'll check in.
Do you want us to write? all
Yeah,
this?
right, yeah, go ahead, yeah, right on, yep.
Start shattering glasses. Trip up today.
if we can, just finish where you're at. So how many of you liked answering those questions? Is it good? How do you feel after answering those questions?
More relaxed.
More relaxed. That's a good point. I never thought of it like that. I feel more relaxed every time I do it. How do you feel?
More clear.
More clear, right?
I would say probably clarity, just kind of,
That's right.
I don't know, like in the morning my brain is just.
Yeah.
Yeah, just clarity and focus. Like these are the things that all my actions have to be kind of going towards.
You said relaxed. What do you feel?
Kind of on the same lines, just more focused.
More focused. Yeah. So notice how you feel. That is how it feels when your future is compelling and clear. Everything you just said, but now you just took, that was 2, 4, 6, I gave you 6.5 minutes to write. So in 6.5 minutes, you said, I'm relaxed, more focused, more clear. Clarity, right? In 6.5 minutes. The more compelling, the more clear you know who you want to become, that feeling is more predominant. And if you walked in every day going, I feel relaxed, yeah, I gotta make hard phone calls, but that's who I'm becoming. I'm good to go make them. And you sit down and you just go through it. You realize you don't have to be this little toddler kicking and screaming, doing the hard things, because you're focused and you're clear. So what I would tell you is that you can buy that journal. There's a journal, I think I showed this to you, but it's this journal. These questions, and the book of High Performance Habits, and it talks about how when these attributes, when you have clarity, energy, necessity, productivity, influence, and courage, when those are the 6 traits or attributes of every high performance person, this is what they have. Those traits are at a high level in their lives. Your vision is clear, the actions become clear, and the path is clear, and the work is clear, and it becomes enjoyable, just like art. Work can become just like art when the vision's clear. So, your work this week is, I would tell you, is to write down 10, at least up to 10 compelling reasons as to why you're gonna become that person. Not just one, because when one, you'll go, I don't want it, who cares? But when a reason is, I wanna be able to take my family and be able to do this, the reason is, but I wanna be an example to my kids, so they know who to look after, and I want my spouse to be able to trust me and be able, and when you have 10 reasons as to why you're gonna become those things, then when it comes a moment to quit, you're like, I might quit because I don't care about the fancy car. I might quit because who cares if I live into a bigger house? Or who cares if I can't go to Disneyland every year? But one thing you won't do, you won't quit on your kids. You're not gonna quit if you're, out of those 10 things, you will have a couple that are a standard, or there's no way I'm going back.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.